Hi, and welcome to Outsiders Background Knowledge, where we'll run through some things you should know about what life was like in the time when The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton took place, which was the 1960s. First, we have the author, S.E. Hinton, seen as a teenager when she actually wrote the book, and then as an adult. Yeah, she was only 15 when she wrote this. You might also notice that she used her initials S.E. because she couldn't get this book published by anyone. Um, Publishers would never ever let a young female write about gangs of violence. This is similar to what J.K. Rowling has done more recently with the Harry Potter series for similar reasons. Also, this book actually takes place in southwest Oklahoma, which is here where the mouse is, which is quite a distance from where we are. So, the fashion of the time period was classic. Men of all races preferred jeans and t shirts. Some went with the cutoff shirts or jackets that were made of jean or leather, and some went with button up shirts that were plaid. Others wore actual suits. Women, on the other hand, wore earth tone mini dresses that may contain patterns like plaid or flowers, or they would try to spice things up by adding feathers to the ends of some of their outfits. As you can also see, gloves were an integral part of any female accessory or any female outfit as a prime accessory. Hairstyles were also very different. They were heavily influenced by famous actors, actresses, and musicians. At the time, guys would adopt a bowl cut in the bottom right, a crew cut, which is most still around today, or put gel in their hair to slick it back, while women would wear their hair bouffant style as a beehive, or others went for straight hair or grew it out in afros. One prominent actor who played a big role in this book is Paul Newman. He was considered the best looking actor of this time period by many. Our narrator does a good job of description in the first line of the story when he compares himself to Paul Newman. And these are the actual first two sentences in that story. Here we see the cars of the 1960s. They were headlined by the Mustangs, Corvettes, and Corvairs. They're referred in the novel as tough looking cars. Not tough as in like rough looking, but TUFF, tough, or cool looking. You also might not realize this either, but drive in theaters were around almost in every single neighborhood or city in the 1960s. However, through time, they fall into the wayside. However, and you may have seen or heard about one though that's still in business right near us in Gibson City, the Harvest Moon Drive-In, which is about 20 minutes from Champaign. And since the book resides in southwest Oklahoma, a common event to participate in or watch in the South are rodeos, where people would ride horses in timed events or stay on them. One popular rodeo event you'll hear discussed in The Outsiders is a barrel race, where the horse must turn around a series of barrels, which you can see in the bottom middle picture. There are also some key concepts to keep in mind while reading, one of which is Hinton's use of metaphors. She really focuses on the poem Nothing Gold Can Stay. Listen to the actual author read this poem and don't worry about being confused. It'll hopefully become clear when you read it.
Nature's first green is gold, her hardest show to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay.
Another metaphor that you'll hear used frequently is sunsets. So keep an eye out for them as you read because you probably want to stop and think about the situation. The 60s also had some of the most notorious and polarizing presidents to date. The one on the far left is John F. Kennedy, or JFK. He was assassinated way too young, which led to the vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, pictured in the middle, taking over the presidency and staying there until Nixon took over. Fun fact is that Nixon actually ran against Kennedy in 1960 and lost before he decided to run again and win in 1968. His most famous claim to fame is that he actually resigned as president due to impeachment from a scandal. And no time period in history is complete without music. So let's take a second and see if you can guess some of these artists with their pictures And we're actually going to go through them as well as some famous African American artists of the 60s in a second. So Motown Records set America on fire while pushing African American music to the mainstream for the first time, it seemed like. Started in Detroit by an African American, they signed what would be many famous artists right away, such as Marvin Gaye, The Supremes, Stevie Wonder, The Temptations, and the Marvelettes, which actually gave them the label's first number one hit with Hey, Mr. Postman. So let's listen to The Supremes and the Marvelettes for about 30 seconds each. So first, we'll start with The Supremes.
Welcome to DraftKings Sportsbook, the land of can't.
I apologize for that.
But all you do is treat me bad, break my heart and leave me sad. Tell me what did I do to make you say I'll wait for you?
And as you can see, wore some of the popular hairstyles that we talked about earlier. Next, we'll listen to Hey, Mr. Postman, which was the number one label, or first number one for Motown Records.
Oh yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Hey, 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 Mr. Postman. Oh yeah, please, Mr. Postman. Oh yeah.
All right. Next, we have Elvis, who was thought to be the devil by many parents back in the day with his dance moves that were unheard of. So devilish, in fact, that even when he started making TV appearances, the stations refused to show him below the face. His electric music created a new generation of dancers that were unafraid to move. So we're going to show you him dancing to his song, You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, one of his 18 number one hits.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never gonna rather and you ain't no friend of mine. Well, they said you were high class. Oh, that was just fine.
Yeah, so just the hip movement was not appreciated by many of the older generations back then. One person you probably don't know who is mentioned in the book when you read is Hank Williams. He had a ton of country hits and died in an early age from an overdose. He did have a son, Hank Williams Jr., who is probably more well known to younger generations. And he's most famous, and his son was most famous for the Monday Night Football theme song, for which he did about 20 years. But we're going to take a listen to one of Hank Williams Sr.'s hits here in a second.
Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN.
And this one is Hey, Good Lookin'.
Especially for you. But look. Baby, good looking. What you got cooking? I'm about cooking something up with me.
All right. So that was old country music for you. And we can't mention the 60s without talking about the original boy band. They stormed out of the UK and headlined the world. The Beatles were the guys who made all the guys get bowl cuts, which is what their hairstyles were. And it made all the girls crazy. They were like the first teenage boy band. They had so many hits, so we're going to listen to one of them that they performed on live TV.
Oh yeah, tell you something. I think you'll understand when I say that something. I wanna hold
All right. So they were the heartthrobs of America. However, overall, the time period of the 60s was still a generation at a divide. The civil rights era, more or less, was just beginning. Gangs still existed, they were around, but new gangs were popping up, and more groups were popping up that were fighting for inequalities in life, such as the rich versus the poor, segregation, or even just plain out human mistreatment. So, hopefully, this video kind of gave you a glimpse into what the 60s were like so that you can help to understand the outsiders better as you read. Thanks.